All right, as promised, joining me now, Olivia Troy, the director of the Republican Accountability Project. They actually designed that ad that I just showed you before the commercial, and she was a former top aide to Vice President Mike Pence. Michael Steele also joining us, former chairman of the Republican National Committee, host of the Michael Steele podcast, and an MSNBC political analyst, former lieutenant governor of the state of Maryland. Good morning to both of you, friends. It's great to see you. Olivia, Stephanie Grisham talked about the fact that you're going to be part of this group that's taking a meeting next week about talking about what to do about Donald Trump. What can you tell us?
Well, I don't have more details to share right now. I think this is a preliminary discussion. You know, there is a whole group of us who saw what Trump is capable firsthand, who lived it firsthand, who remain concerned about his influence over politics today, his influence over the Republican Party especially. And we're watching these Trumpist-like candidates that are also slated to run in the upcoming midterms. And I think whether it's people in national security, people who are more on the political side of the House, we've been having these conversations in silos, I would say, individual conversations. But I think we've decided that it would be good to convene and have a real discussion about what we're seeing here and what we might be able to do to counter what is happening here.
Michael Steele, what do those conversations look like to you in the community in which you exist, of current Republicans, former Republicans, people who understand that not divorcing from Donald Trump is going to be dangerous, not just for democracy, but for the Republican Party? Has anybody got anything that you've seen that feels concrete to sort of eliminate the threat, not just of Donald Trump, but of people like Donald Trump, because there are others?
Well, it's a multifaceted challenge, Ali, because you're not just dealing with the full frontal attack of Donald Trump. What you have to really get your head around is the underlying roots that fuel that attack. The reason why Matt Gaetz and Gober and other folks are out there acting and behaving their way. We just talked about Tucker Carlson and Ted Cruz, is because of that fuel that's coming from beneath the surface, the energy of a base that has retribution it wants. It has issues it wants to prosecute, whatever it happens to be. So the conversations from my perspective, tend to drill down to that level to understand that so that you can better deal with that. A friend of mine put it this way: how do you reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into? That's the conundrum. That's the essence of this. Because a lot of folks are running around here talking about, oh, we got to stop Trump. Okay, then what? You've already seen now Trump goes to rallies and talks about getting the shot and people boo him.
And he gets booed.
All right. Right. So this is something that's beyond the thing that's right in front of you. You've got to look at the energy that's pushing that thing to do what it's doing.
Olivia, you tweeted out the other day, Mike Pence should do America a favor and cooperate. He should release the stark photos of the reality he faced on January 6th, displaying what Trump and Trumpism really means for our democracy when a president is capable of inciting an attack against his own vice president. Furthermore, for every member of law enforcement that I saw Mike Pence go out of his way to thank during his travels as vice president, actions and accountability speak louder than words. The police officers who risked their own lives protecting him and others on January 6th deserve the truth. You know Mike Pence, and we've heard talk this week that either Pence or Pence's orbit might be cooperating with this January 6th committee. There's some talk that Mike Pence himself will get an invitation to testify before the committee.
Yeah, and I think that's of critical importance because no one knows all of the details of what he lived that day except for Mike Pence. And he knows exactly what happened in the lead up to it, what he was facing internally in terms of the pressure on him to not do his constitutional duty and to fall in line with Donald Trump once again. And he's done that multiple times in 4 years that he has stood by this madman in the Oval Office. But I will say that I'm grateful that he stood his ground that day. But I think it's of greater importance now to come forward and speak honestly about what happened. I think he would do the country a much greater good by actually countering what continues to be the big lie today that is being carried forward and doubled down on by the Republican Party, by the majority of the Republican Party. So I'm I hope that he'll cooperate. I know that the staff is. And I hope, the reason I mentioned the photos is because that is history right there.
Yeah.
That is the reality of what happened. And that needs to be remembered so that it never happens again.
Michael, you talked about this the other day. I talked about it with Ruth Ben-Ghiat a little while ago, that weird Ted Cruz thing that happened this week. He called the people who participated in January 6th violent terrorists. And then he was made to go. I haven't seen Ted Cruz back down in a lot of arguments in his life. He faces a lot of criticism, but he tends to stick to his guns. He went on Tucker Carlson's show and groveled. He apologized. He said he was clumsy, what he said. This is a weird thing. And to Ruth Ben-Ghiat's point, it's alarming. It's more than weird. It's the idea that Ted Cruz got the message that if you want to succeed in the Republican Party, you need to toe the party line no matter what.
Yeah, went by any other name. All this bravado, all this great intellect from Harvard and Yale and all these fine institutions, and you can't stand up to Tucker Carlson? Are you kidding me? You cannot be that daft and inept, but apparently he is. And it goes to, look, this is the same guy who, sat there and took it when Donald Trump said his father assassinated John F. Kennedy and that his wife was ugly and called him all kinds of names. This is an abusive relationship between Trump and the Republican elected officials in this country. It is an absolute abusive relationship. And it goes back to what we were just talking about a little bit. What level of intervention do we, as current and former Republicans, Olivia, myself, and others, what can we do? But also, greater than that, what can all of us do? This is a moment where the citizens have to look at this kind of leadership and hold these folks accountable. And how do we do that? That's the rub of where we are right now.
I think this is interesting because, Olivia, that's actually what you are, right? You're a citizen soldier. You decided at some point that that party is just not more important than citizenship. And a lot of people, including John Meacham, have made the point that that's what we all have to do right now. We all have to decide that whatever this democracy is, we all need to do what we can do to sustain it and strengthen it.
Absolutely. Everyone has a role to play right now. And look, we're going into the 2022 midterms, and I know that historically people tend to take a step back on them, but this is not the time to do that. And I am actually pleading that people pay attention, not only to the national level, but what is really happening at the state level as well. Look at those races, especially when it comes to the secretaries of state at the local level, at the state level, because they are going to play a role in future elections. And that groundwork that is being laid right now this past year, when it comes to whatever voting laws are being passed at the state level, but also the groundwork that is laid in 2022 will impact what happens in 2024. And that is overall what will determine what happens to American democracy in our country. And so it's going to take the coalition of the willing. And Michael's right. It's all of us playing whatever role we can in whatever capacity.
Let's start today. Google your state representative, your state senator, and find out who your Secretary of State is. Let's start by knowing who they are and what they stand for. Thanks to both of you for the work that you do in defense of democracy. Olivia Troy, director of the Republican Accountability Project, former top aide to then Vice President Mike Pence. Michael Steele, former chairman of the RNC, chairman and an MSNBC political analyst, former lieutenant governor of Maryland.